Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something uh, really powerful. Community engagement. Think of it as, the collective heartbeat of positive change.
Yeah, where people are actively shaping the decisions that affect their lives, their environments,
Yeah,
working together, right? With organizations, governments.
exactly. And our mission today really is to explore why getting involved like this isn't just sort of a nice idea.
No, it's fundamental. It's the bedrock of how we shape a better world around us. We've been looking into its different facets.
Yeah, we've been delving into this really insightful article that kind of unpacks the power, the mechanics behind it all.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. And it made me think, have you ever felt like your own voice just gets lost sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. I think many people feel that way.
Well, this deep dive is all about how, collectively, those voices can actually drive real, essential change.
And what's critical here really is including diverse community voices in decision-making.
Okay, let's unpack that. Why is that diversity of voices so crucial?
Because it leads to inclusive governance, it empowers locals. When people actually participate, the solutions that come out are just, well, they're more relevant. They're more effective.
Especially for marginalized groups, I imagine.
Precisely. Their perspectives, their unique experiences might be completely missed otherwise. Bringing those realities into the planning process, that makes a huge difference.
The article mentions the Detroit Future City Initiative as a case study. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a really interesting one. A long-term strategic framework for the city.
Developed with community input.
Extensive input. They really consulted residents, diverse populations. It wasn't just a formality.
So how did that shape the final plan? What was the result?
Well, because they gathered all this input, the solutions really prioritized revitalizing the city while, importantly, respecting neighborhood cultures and history.
Ah, so it wasn't just about building new things.
Exactly. And this led to a more comprehensive plan, much greater community buy-in, and ultimately more robust project implementation down the line.
That makes sense. Stronger support from the start.
And actually, a key thing there was the iterative feedback. They didn't just ask once. They'd present ideas, get reactions, revise.
Ah, like a continuous conversation.
Precisely. It fostered this sense of co-creation, which is vital for long-term success.
That ongoing dialogue is key. The article also brought up public health during the COVID-19 pandemic in the U.S.
Right. Another compelling example. Many health departments formed these community advisory boards.
Made up of local residents.
Yes, exactly. The goal was to understand the specific concerns, the needs of different demographic groups during that really difficult time.
And did that local knowledge make a difference on the ground?
Absolutely. By listening to those often underrepresented voices, health departments could tailor their strategies much more effectively.
Like how? What kind of strategies?
Things like more targeted information campaigns or vaccination efforts that directly addressed the specific barriers different communities were facing.
And the outcome.
It led to higher vaccination rates, better compliance with guidelines in many areas. It showed that listening works.
So it really hammers home the point. Involve the community, get better policies that reflect what people actually need and want.
Which in turn builds trust in those institutions. It's a positive cycle.
Definitely. And that trust, those relationships are fundamental, aren't they?
Absolutely essential for any kind of sustainable change. You can't achieve big goals without them.
So the article gets into how engagement builds that trust. It's not just about like holding a meeting every now and then.
Not at all. Fundamentally, it's about open and honest communication. Two-way communication.
What do you mean?
Meaning actively listening to community needs and concerns, and then crucially, providing timely and transparent updates on what's happening, on plans, on decisions.
So people feel informed, not just consulted once and forgotten.
Exactly. Transparency builds that confidence. It shows a real commitment to the public interest. If people feel things are hidden, trust just evaporates.
The article mentions regular forums or town halls as a good strategy. Why are they effective?
They provide that direct platform, a space for people to voice feelings, desires, ideas. It gives them agency.
A role in the process.
Right. And it also lets leaders clarify misconceptions, address worries directly, make sure everyone feels heard.
And inclusivity is key there, I assume.
Hugely important. The more inclusive and accessible those conversations are, the stronger that foundation of trust becomes.
And once you have that trust, what does that unlock?
Deeper collaboration. People become much more motivated to work together towards common goals when they trust the process and the people involved.
They're more willing to invest their time and energy.
Precisely. Because they feel valued, they feel they're part of something genuine.
The article also brings up something maybe less formal volunteering, community projects.
Yes. That's incredibly valuable. Working side by side on a project, a neighborhood cleanup, whatever it is.
It builds connections differently.
Yeah, totally. It fosters those personal connections, that shared sense of purpose, in a non-competitive, collaborative way.
And doesn't matter if leaders participate too.
Oh, absolutely. When leaders roll up their sleeves and join in, it sends a really powerful message.
Shows sincerity.
Exactly. Sincerity, commitment. It helps build those longer-lasting, more meaningful relationships beyond just formal meetings.
Okay, so we've covered the importance of voices, building trust. Now let's talk about the facilitators. Local organizations seem critical here.
They really are. The article emphasizes how these groups, nonprofits, grassroots movements, civic organizations, they're often the backbone.
The engine making engagement happen on the ground.
You could say that. They're embedded locally, they mobilize residents, they tackle those specific local issues.
Let's break that down. What role do nonprofits typically play?
Nonprofits often focus on specific areas like education, health, social justice. They provide resources, support, guidance.
And they often have networks.
Exactly. They're usually skilled at building partnerships, mobilizing volunteers, coordinating events. Plus, they often bring experience in things like fundraising and program development, which is crucial for sustainability.
Okay, and what about grassroots groups? How are they different?
Grassroots groups are interesting because they bubble up from the community, often in response to a very specific need or interest right there.
So more organic.
Very much so. And because of that, they really empower individuals to voice concerns, advocate for change locally, sometimes even nationally. They foster a strong sense of ownership.
Which leads to long-term commitment, perhaps.
Often, yes. People feel it's their initiative.
And the third type mentioned was civic organizations. What's their focus?
Their main goal is promoting active citizenship, getting people involved in decision-making processes.
How do you do that?
Often through things like discussion forums, workshops, aiming to raise civic awareness, encourage participation, and equip people with the skills to engage effectively with local government and other initiatives.
So for all these types of organizations to be really effective, what are the best practices?
The article highlights a few key things. Creating genuinely inclusive spaces is vital places where everyone feels safe and empowered to speak up.
Not just the usual suspects.
Right. Also, using digital platforms smartly for outreach and keeping people in the loop.
And transparency, again.
Always. Transparent communication is crucial. Focusing on these things helps organizations really empower communities.
Okay, let's talk about where this has worked. Success stories. The article mentioned Waltham, Massachusetts, a public health initiative.
Yes, a great example. Diverse residents work directly with healthcare professionals
To do what exactly?
to identify the big local health issues in their case. Things like obesity and diabetes came up, but they didn't stop there.
They developed solutions together.
Exactly. They designed engaging workshops, outreach programs, things that resonated with the community because the community helped build them.
And the result?
Yeah.
Was it measurable?
It was. Over 5 years, they saw a significant reported decrease in those health issues. It shows the power of community-driven solutions.
That's impressive. Then there was a story about a PTA in Los Angeles.
Right, in an urban neighborhood, they were facing declining enrollment, not enough resources, big challenges for a school.
What do they do?
Instead of giving up, parents, teachers, community leaders formed this revitalization coalition. They took ownership.
And how did they tackle the problems?
On multiple fronts. They marketed the school's successes, they advocated hard for more funding, they even organized tutoring programs led by community members.
Wow. Did it work?
It did. They saw increased enrollment and improved educational experience overall. It really shows what an engaged parent community can achieve.
Truly inspiring. And the article also points to the Black Lives Matter movement as an example of engagement driving social justice.
Yes, a very powerful, large-scale example. Through dialogue, protests, awareness campaigns, the movement brought sustained, critical attention to racial inequality.
Engaging people from all backgrounds.
Absolutely. It mobilized so many people to collectively demand change, demand justice.
And it's had a real impact on policy and public conversation.
Definitely. It significantly engaged policymakers and the public, leading to tangible changes in legislation and local governance aimed at promoting equity.
So these stories, taken together, what do they tell us?
They show that community engagement isn't just about fixing immediate problems, though it does that. It's also about building resilience, fostering a more just society for the long haul.
Of course, it's not always smooth sailing. The article does address challenges. What gets in the way of effective engagement?
Yeah, there are definitely hurdles. Things like societal dynamics, resource constraints, even individual attitudes can hinder involvement.
Like community apathy.
Exactly. When residents feel disconnected, maybe they feel their voice won't make a difference. They lack motivation to participate.
And that can become a cycle.
It can. Disinterest leads to lower participation, which makes it harder to mobilize people next time. It's tough to break.
What about resources?
That's another huge one. Limited budgets, lack of access to basic tools or services. It makes organizing engaging events really difficult.
Practical things, like just finding a meeting space.
Or having the funds for outreach, or even just enough staff or volunteers to keep initiatives going. It can stall things and increase that feeling of disconnection.
And then there are deeper issues. Systemic inequalities.
Absolutely crucial to acknowledge. Marginalized groups often face historic discrimination, lack of representation, practical barriers like inaccessible meeting spots or communication that doesn't reach them.
And these barriers affect their ability or willingness to even participate.
Profoundly. If engagement efforts don't actively address these systemic issues, they can actually end up reinforcing the disparities they're trying to fix.
So recognizing these challenges is the first step.
It has to be. You need to see the obstacles clearly to develop strategies that are truly inclusive and can actually boost participation across the board.
So, knowing those challenges, what are some practical strategies the article suggests for fostering engagement? What can people actually do
Several things. Conducting surveys is a good starting point.
to understand needs?
Exactly. Needs, preferences, concerns. Using a mix of online and offline methods helps reach more people, get representative data, and asking open-ended questions gives richer insights.
We talked about meetings for trust. How do they fit in as an engagement strategy?
They're vital for dialogue, fostering that sense of belonging. Offering different formats helps too. Town halls, smaller focus groups, workshops, people have different preferences.
And making them accessible.
Critical. Providing both physical and virtual options opens participation up to many more people.
What about the digital side of things, online platforms?
Hugely important now. Social media, websites, apps, they're powerful for getting information out widely and quickly and for real-time engagement.
Like virtual forums?
Yes, places for discussion, feedback, promoting projects. The key is creating content that actually resonates with the community's values and interests.
Makes sense. And the article also mentioned collaborative projects again.
Right. Getting people involved, hands-on neighborhood cleanups, skill sharing, community gardens. It harnesses collective strengths.
Builds partnerships.
Yes, and often sparks innovation. Ultimately, the best strategies are tailored to the specific community. No one-size-fits-all.
That adaptability seems key. Now, technology, the article really highlights how much it's changed things.
Oh, fundamentally, it's opened up completely new avenues for communication, collaboration, action, social media, forums, apps. They're essential tools now.
How does social media specifically help boost involvement?
Well, platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they just massively increase visibility. You can share info about events, campaigns, needs, almost instantly to a huge audience.
Makes engagement more efficient.
Much more. And it's great for getting quick feedback, seeing what people think, plus using photos, videos that can be really powerful for conveying messages and getting people energized.
And beyond social media, other platforms.
Things like Zoom, Slack, online forums, they act as virtual meeting spaces. People can collaborate regardless of where they are.
Which helps with reaching diverse populations.
Absolutely. It breaks down geographical barriers, helps ensure more voices can actually be part of the conversation.
But it's not all positive, is it? The article mentions pitfalls.
True. The digital divide is a major one. Not everyone has equal access to tech or the skills to use it confidently.
Which can exclude people.
Exactly. It can disproportionately affect marginalized groups, potentially making inequalities worse if we're not careful.
And misinformation.
That's the other big one. It spreads so fast online, it can really erode trust and derail productive engagement.
So how do we navigate that? Maximize the benefits, minimize the risks.
The article suggests things like inclusivity training for online spaces, actively fact-checking information, and investing in digital literacy programs.
To bridge that divide and build skills.
Right. It takes a conscious effort to make tech work for everyone equitably and effectively.
This has been a really comprehensive look at community engagement. If you had to boil it down, What's the main takeaway for our listeners?
I think the core message is that community engagement isn't just, a nice to have. It's a vital catalyst for real, lasting societal change.
It's about collaboration, empowerment.
And active participation, ensuring people have a real say in the decisions that affect them.
And looking forward, where is this heading?
We're seeing a growing understanding that we need adaptable, genuinely inclusive frameworks. Frameworks where every single voice is valued and actively sought out.
And technology's role will keep growing.
Undoubtedly, digital platforms, social media, they're transforming participation, allowing for instant feedback, enhancing transparency.
So it really takes everyone pulling together.
Absolutely. The future relies on a collective responsibility. Governments, nonprofits, even the private sector, all working to create environments where participation isn't just possible, but actively encouraged and supported.
A shared effort. Okay, on that note, here's a final thought for you, our listener. Think about the smallest group you're part of. Maybe it's your street, a hobby club, an online forum you like. How could more active, more thoughtful engagement right there in that micro-community maybe ripple outwards? How could it create broader, positive change? What's one small step you could take, maybe even today, to be more actively engaged right where you are? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.